One thing that I had to figure out very quickly is that hybrid, Hyflex, works exactly like a face-to-face class. You cannot, even if you have everything written out, what you expect to accomplish, you cannot stick to it. You have to think that things will happen. There will be teachable moments that are like, I need to do this, or like that section that refused to talk. So you have to modify things for them, or you will not get to the end and you need to get something in that will round things up. So being flexible was the main thing. You cannot go in expecting to, okay, this is what I'm going to do and do it. So that would be my main thing that really helped me. The document polls. Polls are surprisingly good ways to show um, that students are engaged. Because one of the problems that I had with my Zoom students, particularly, was that they would log in and they would disappear. So you'd put them in breakout rooms, and there'd be two or three that would just stay there because they evidently weren't there. Or they would go to the breakout rooms, and then I would get reports from students saying, "Do we include them in the group work because they didn't do anything? They didn't even turn on the mic." So polls are a great way to see what students are doing and to get them engaged and also to get them interested because it's a break of pace that totally changes things up. It's like, oh, I can do this. And they'll do it quickly. And it's like, oh, I'm happy now. It's just really weird. So polls are a great way. And I got something from a course that I took, a workshop that I took online, which was really cool. And what the instructor did, and I started using it a couple times, and it really was interesting. I teach language, so a lot of what I do has to do with culture. So I would put a picture up of a place that I'd been. I tried to put myself in the picture, but if I wasn't there, I'd put a picture up, and I'd give them in a poll multiple choice of three different places that it could be in the US, in different parts of South America or Central America and Spain, and they would have to try to guess where it was, and then we'd briefly discuss why they thought it was one place or another. So it also gave them I would do it as a warm up before class while they were sort of like a bell ringer while they were settling in, and I'd put the picture up in the class and we'd also be discussing it. And so that was a cool way to get them started and get them situated and sort of start the class, ease them into the class. So that was another thing that I really liked. But yeah, I think those those are things that really worked.
You need to find ways to keep your students engaged regularly and have them be interacting with you. So I've been fortunate. I said earlier that one of the things that worked well was the critical assessments. And a piece of that is that we give students feedback to those. So every week they say what they learned, what they have questions about, and what they can apply, and we grade it and give them some feedback. This is a difficult thing to do with 100 students, but I have a great TA. And that interaction, I think, has really been invaluable. I'm very grateful for that. So you need to, weigh the assignments and the level of feedback that you give, I think, based on the amount of students you have. But find a way to be communicating with them virtually, where they're getting comments from you on a relatively regular basis. I think that the critical assessments are the strength. The open-ended questions where students respond. That's where I see that they actually have gone online and interacted with the material that I've shared with them there, and I can see them thinking and applying the material. So I think those open-ended responses worked fairly well.
What worked well for me is one, I figured out first that clarity about what students needed to do was important. And also being open to working around anything that came up for the students was important. Being more open in terms of their technology. Still, we have many students who don't, even though the university lays out requirements for technology, we have students who don't have access to that technology. We have students who are trying to do all of their coursework on their cell phone, for example. And so having to be open to working with them around the technology and offering times where they may need to do something a little, an individual student might need to do something a little bit different than someone else in order to be successful. I think that is important. I realized early on that Zoom was a good friend of the class, but I didn't put all of my curriculum and all of my stuff on Zoom because I did want to encourage people to be in class. And then some students wouldn't come to class anyway. But what I found is that as soon as you implement something, students themselves will work around that. So, in this hybrid kind of situation, sometimes you had students who didn't come, but they might send one person from their group to attend class, and then that person would share what they got in the class to the other students. And that wasn't the optimal thing to happen, but I became okay with it because I had to be clear about my goal. And my goal was that the students learned the information and the material. And if they were able to do that because of this informant that I called them, then that was okay with me, right? So I had to be open to the fact, more open to the fact that students could learn in multiple ways, and that if I achieved that goal with a level of standard, that it would be okay. I had some students who the first Monday of the first week of the module wanted their test. They wanted to go in and take the test and do that. And that doesn't work well for anybody. And so I just had to re-educate them about, so that was unfortunate for me. And so what I understand again is you can have your best laid out plans for success in the course, and you have to be able to adjust. But I think that is the nature of how we educate students altogether anyway, right? Is that you have to think about how you're going to adjust and do all of that, even if it doesn't work out the way you think it should work out.
I would say the thing that worked well, I think the thing that worked well were the live recordings. I noticed that as the semester goes on, as the semester went on, that more and more students were just, to some degree, overwhelmed with everything that's going on. And so it was easier for them to fit the class into their schedule or to their things that changed over the semester. And so the things that worked well were providing live recordings. And the other things that worked well is I shifted all of my exams to Canvas and to virtual type exams. And a lot of students reported that they really enjoyed that. And I also made it so that I restructured the exams in such a way that it would be more open book for students, whereas before it was come in and you have to just kind of regurgitate the information in a classroom without your resources. And in this case, I restructured it so that the students could use their resources, be able to open up the books. I restructured the questions in a way that made them think a little bit more about the questions, but since they had the resources, it was helpful for students. And so I found that really worked well. I was really hesitant to do that because I'm like, oh, this is putting exams out there where students can have access to it, and not sure if it would lead to other issues within the class. But a lot of students find it very favorable that they're able to actually have their notes just in case they go through an exam question and they're like, oh, I can go back and look that one up when I get later on in the exam. So shifting the way that I do assessments in the course were incredibly helpful for students. The video lectures recorded video lectures were incredibly helpful for students, as well as the announcements, the video announcements for students. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from that regard. So those are the things that I would say worked really well this semester.
One easy little thing is I like how when videos are integrated through Studio, you can look in and see who's watched them, and how much time they spent watching them. And you can integrate the quizzes and so on into them too. But even just, who watched the videos is very helpful, because that was one of the expectations was, watching the videos, reviewing the content before coming face to face. And so that gave me a sense sometimes of, did they do it or not? But the module organization is good just to keep the things that they're trying to learn, all your objectives organized. Going forward, I will not have the assignments tab available to them on the left-hand side. When I was taking the class over the summer, I kind of wanted it. It wasn't there. And I was like, I have to get to this assignment. I'm going to have to scroll all the way through these modules. But what I realized is that students were sometimes skipping important information that I had put in the module just as like a page or whatever. And then the assignment was below it. And so they're just going to the assignments, and then they're asking me these questions, and I'm like, it's all online. Like all your answers are there. And then I started realizing, oh, they're skipping. Like, so yeah, I'm gonna take that little thing away.
There are several things in a hybrid classroom that I like to be able to use. One of those is the document camera. Let's start there. So analyzing text, I like that teachable moment. So if we're doing, I teach children's literature. So if we're doing graphic novels, I'll have a selection behind me. So if someone asks a particular question, I'm not stuck to a PowerPoint and the things that I happen to have digitized. I can pull up an example and bring it up immediately under my document camera. So in a hybrid classroom, what happens is my online friends can see that through my camera, through the document camera, that I can focus directly on that. And my in-person friends can see that on the screen, just like my online students. But I can also take, and when finished, if they want more instruction, right, that's why they're there, I can take that resource over to them, and they can look at it in more detail and analyze it differently. I've also done that and invited in guest speakers, and that's been very helpful. Book repair, for instance, they can look at under the camera, or they can do that. So the hybrid classroom I find very important to address students' learning styles. They can do the face-to-face, they can do the online, but they still aren't missing out from the other people who are in the classroom. I also use lots of different online tools to be able to take formative assessments to kind of gauge where my students are, as well as interaction. So the Padlet option, Mentimeter, Poll Everywhere, which UNCG Online is doing a pilot with, or they were last semester. I can quickly do something and get everybody's feedback in a word cloud, or I can get everybody's feedback there. It doesn't matter if you're in-house or online, they can still participate in those things. And then we can analyze those and look at them in more detail. Padlet, you've heard me say, is another one I enjoy. There are lots of things. Lenote, I actually have an article with 75 tools. I have them analyze and share out and say, why would you use this and how do you make it apply? Because that's what we're there for. We actually break them up into groups, and I have them share those on a Google form. It's the same way, or a Google Sheet, so that they can interactively share those things out. They're doing research on one thing, but when they leave with a resource that has 50 things on it. So they're not having to do all that resource from this one page. They can go and see the video and those things. So we've made it interactive. We've made a full-length resource for them to go back and access in the future. And so they're creating a tool not just for themselves, but for the whole class that really benefits them. So that's the thing I like the best about being able to teach hybrid and online. If I ask a question and I have to wait for everybody to unmute and talk to me, that's a problem. So I need a quick way to get quick feedback and see it all immediately. So I always create my Zooms where everybody's audio is muted when they come in. That can be a problem. So that's something I always set up. And I always set up their video to also be muted. So it's an intentional purpose to unmute your video and unmute your mic. If everyone's mic's unmuted, we have a problem. So always keep your mic muted. Because of bandwidth, I usually have them keep their video muted just so that they don't have problems with that. And that's a problem for some professors because they want to see everybody and know they're there. I use that nonverbal feedback constantly throughout my lesson to still get that and still protect their feedback. I'm sorry, protect their bandwidth. That helps me get their feedback, helps me know immediately that they're with me, and can help me know in just looking at my screen, they all pop up green, I can move forward. Or, okay, I've got 3 or 4 people who've not heard of this tool, I need to spend more time on it, or whatever the question might be. So that nonverbal feedback is my number one tool to be able to quickly get information from them and know that they're with me, and also know if I need to review something in more detail.
I just tried to be very, very clear with the announcements, making sure that I was engaging them through announcements, keeping them on the same page, making sure we all like to say, we give you the syllabus on the first day of class, you know when all the due dates are. But the reality is that this is a very difficult time and deadlines are maybe not always exactly consistent. Maybe things aren't always due on a Monday the way that they can be for other courses. So I try to be very, very clear with announcements, when things were posted, opportunities that were available to them, especially the mindfulness opportunities offered through the counseling center this month in particular, are really huge, but especially with exams coming up. So I would start dropping those announcements about the exam being available to them, date, time, structure, all of that, just trying so hard to keep everybody on board and on the same page and engaged with the material. I don't know if this is important or relevant or pertinent, but I just tried to make sure that Canvas was always our home spot. You know, if they ever needed anything, go to Canvas, look at either the modules, the syllabus, or the announcements. One of those 3 places is going to have your answer. You can always find your information there. So I tried to be very, very consistent in the way that I communicated with them. That way there was never any confusion, and that things were always documented multiple times. You know, we said it in class. It's in 2 or 3 different announcements. It's in the syllabus. So hopefully you know what you're supposed to be doing.